prompt, but I don't need you to tell me what to
Did
do.
you did you get, oh yeah, so now we're live. Right as soon as I was about to ask if you got your hair cut. Do
I did get my hair cut. I
you
did
always
get my
have
hair cut.
fringe? Is that what you call it in Australia?
Yeah, we call it a fringe. We don't. Do you
We
know?
call
I
them we
spent
call
my
them
whole
bangs. We call
childhood.
them bangs
Yeah,
here.
I know, and I don't get it. I so don't get it. I spent my whole childhood reading novels where girls had bangs, and it's like,
What, like Nancy Drew or something, or Fear Street, or what are you talking about?
what did I read as a kid? Um, Famous Five. That's British though. I can't remember now. What was I reading? That was American. Lots of things. I read a lot as a kid.
My son
Yeah,
just
and all the.
ripped through the Hardy Boys. He was a big fan of that.
See, I'm building up. I've got the entire collection. I've got the entire James Bond collection for when they're teenagers.
Mm.
I'm building up the entire Agatha Christie collection because my boys both love a whodunit.
Mm.
But I have got the entire collection of the Famous Five. Did you ever get into the Famous Five?
Never heard of him.
You see, see, they couldn't have been that famous. They didn't have social media then. But it's like the British version of the Hardy Boys.
Ah,
Yeah. So it was, wartime England, kids staying in some country house during the war. You know, kids were sent away to the country in the UK during the war, and they were always there were always people up to no good, and they would solve these mysteries. And there was Julian, Dick, Anne, George, who was a girl, and Timmy the dog. And they were just so fabulous, so as a kid I just firmly believed that that's what I was going to be when I grew up. Like, I was going to be some kid who solved mysteries. And for a long
but now
time,
you're an adult who solves mysteries within the minds of people who are being held back.
the mysteries of the mind. So as an adult, I even wanted to be like, I just thought I started writing detective novels at one point in my life. I just really had this whole, that's why I became a psychologist, because I was interested in crime. Yes, it goes all the way back. It goes. I've never made that connection before, but it does all go all the way back to Famous Five.
Well, there you go. You're welcome.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Are we recording or no?
Well, no, we're live on Facebook and chit chat. We record now.
Sure.
Welcome to the Crawley and Drager Centre of Attention sessions. We've just been talking all things Famous Five, which Mark had never heard of. So I may have to send you a book to share with your kids, and then we could, or even a link, because there was a TV series. There was so much. There's so much that is the Famous Five.
It was like,
made
I'm
a
connection. Send you a book from Australia, and deep down inside, I'm like, oh, that's so thoughtful and that's so nice. Oh wow, she's gonna do that. Okay, cool. And then it's like, or a link.
I could,
like, right. Somebody get
or a link.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, it's only because every time I have sent something to someone I haven't sent anything to anyone in Canada, but when I've sent anything to anyone in the US, it has taken months. And the moment has well and truly gone, and then they've forgotten what the joke was that I've sent them the funny thing.
I had a friend in Wales who, so I have an original Mini, like 1974 Mini in my garage. I've had it for now 19 years. I've been restoring it for that time.
Which is funny because you also have the biggest truck on the planet, right?
I do have whatever. I have a pickup truck too. Yes. But anyway, he sent me in 2002, I think. He was over here in Canada. We were talking, and the original Italian Job. He's like, "You've never seen the original Italian Job?"
Oh, right.
No. There's no internet back then. There was no American Italian Job or the redo one. So he bought a DVD copy and sent it to me. And I don't know if you remember that, like, there's the difference between PAL and NTSC.
Yes,
so
of course.
You
couldn't play it.
This DVD at all. And so now they have, like, I guess, world DVDs or whatever. But at the time I had to put it into a computer, and you were only allowed to change the computer from like American to British like 3 times. And then it would stop working. And so I had to use up one of the times to turn it over to that so I could watch it, and then use one of the times to turn it back. And that was it. I've never watched it again.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. I think about so I think when people talk about VW Beatles, I think about the movie What's Up Doc with Barbara Streisand.
Oh, really? I think of Herbie the Love Bug, but anyway.
No, you see, that's crap. That is crap. But
I watched it with my kids 2 weeks ago, the original,
right?
and they loved it.
I
But
bet they did. That's
they're also
fantastic.
like 11
They
and
will
below.
love. Yeah, I know. They will love What's Up Doc even more. It's a classic slapstick comedy, Peter Bogdanovich comedy from the 70s. It's a heist film that's driving car chases with a V-dub through the streets of San Francisco, and it's hilarious. Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, who you would not imagine either of those being in a hilarious film, but it is Bernadette Peters as well. Really funny. Go see it. So that's the movie I think of when I'm thinking of Beatles.
There you go.
Which we weren't talking about, but now you know.
No, but here we are. Here we find ourselves.
Here we are anyway. Here we are anyway. So yeah,
so I have a question for you.
Good. Have a question.
I do. Last time when we spoke a fortnight ago, as they say,
as
they say on the other end of the world. 2 weeks ago when we spoke, you were torn on what you can do to help support those little communities affected greatly by the blaze. What did you do?
Well, guess what? I discovered, you see, I did do something. So I have discovered a little startup non-profit-y thing called My Malakuta Esky. So I think I told you last time that there was a movement called Take an Empty Esky, or Go with an Empty Esky, which is, travel to these communities with an empty esky, so ice bucket, empty esky, and buy things, fill your empty esky with things from these regions and go home. It's a lovely woman, Vanessa, in Malakuta. She's in the middle of having plans drawn up for her home to be rebuilt. So, immediately affected by the fires. But she realized Malakuta is a 6-hour drive, as we discovered, a 6-hour drive from pretty much anywhere. And so she's created a thing called My Malakuta Esky, which is she's corralling local businesses to pull together items that people can buy online.
And then ship them out.
and ship them out.
Nice.
So I'm in contact now with Vanessa, and we were going to speak the other day, but she had a sick child. But we are going to be talking. She's hopefully going to be on the podcast, and she's also interested in what I'm talking about with supporting businesses in the Malakuta region in particular. So Malakuta is East Gippsland region, beautiful part of Victoria. And the backstory is that my husband's mother used to live on an island in the East Gippsland region called Raymond Island. Famous for the first time I heard the incredible sounds that koalas make when they are having sex.
Great. And
it's terrifying. It's a terrifying noise. You think someone's being murdered with a chainsaw.
Can you replicate it for me, please?
I actually can't. I actually don't think I'm physically capable of producing that noise.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just had a conversation with someone either today or this morning, I think, at the gym about the sound. We have foxes here. I live on a property with a creek, and we have foxes. Have you ever heard the mating sound of a vixen fox, which is a female fox?
Yeah, I know what a vixen is.
Okay, great. Well, sorry, it's not a term over here. We don't use vixen for anything. I had to
literally.
No, it's not a common term here.
Really?
Vixen is not unless you're talking about like, hey, that woman is dressed up for Halloween like a vixen. No, vixen is not a term we use.
Like, not even like for a foxy lady. Like,
no. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe at Halloween, someone might be like, no one's like, she's a vixen. No. Anyway, so I had to look up the term, but anyway.
We don't speak the same language, do we?
No, not often. Not often. But if you've ever heard the mating call, the shriek of a vixen fox, I was sitting 3 years ago, watching TV late at night, and I don't know if we had the window open or not, but I heard what I thought was a woman being raped in the ravine.
Wow.
Shrieking like out of a horror movie. And so I literally run into the backyard, and somewhere off is just like the worst howl you can imagine. And I had to Google it to try and figure out what was making the sound, because I found out it wasn't.
That's terrifying.
But yeah, anyway.
No.
Yeah. Is that what it sounds
the
like?
only reason we knew
koalas?
Pretty much. And the only reason we knew it wasn't someone being murdered with a chainsaw is because the sound was coming from the top of the gum tree that we were standing under. So it's like, unless someone's very interesting and very small so that they're invisible to us, and unless that hairy-assed thing up there is a human being, which I doubt, that's a koala having sex. So yeah, it's a very, very story.
Wow.
It's a little bit.
How did we get here? Hold on. How did we get here? What brought us to this point in the conversation?
Helping out business owners.
Right. That's how we got here. Okay.
That's how we got here.
I think that's the new title. It's not the center of attention. It's the how did we get here conversation.
It's the where has my mind gone to?
There you go.
The many paths our minds follow. This is the point of a great conversation, is you never know where you're going to end up.
Okay. Okay. So you're doing this. That's fantastic. You're going to help these people out. That's amazing.
So if you Google search my Malakuta esky, you'll find a website where you can purchase kits of things. Like there'll be a hoodie with Malakuta on it. There'll be some sugar cookies with Malakuta on them. There'll be all sorts of things. There's all sorts of things that you can.
A beer bottle opener with Malakuta on it.
Well, there's also, I think she's still building it, so it's in its beginning phases. So there were some shops that already sell Malakuta produce. Well, like for the tourist trade. But there's some jewelry on there now that a local artist is producing, and she's still building it up. So I'm keen to help her raise awareness of that, and build the profile in whatever way I can, have her on the podcast, have others on the podcast. Speaking of the podcast, I found the most exciting thing ever for recording podcasts. So here in Melbourne, there is a hotel, a pub at St Kilda Beach, which I spent my formative early adult years, rather too many hours in this particular pub, which has been done up beautifully now. And in the pub, they have a fully kitted out podcast recording suite.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing with Malakuta, once I've had a chat to Vanessa, is setting up booking out the suite, because I think tying it in with it's the Esplanade Hotel, the Espy to locals, the Esplanade Hotel. So perhaps tying a link with the Esplanade Hotel, because I know they've also had some fundraisers at the Espy for bushfire affected communities. So perhaps having a session booked in at the Esplanade Hotel, where I book in a bunch of business owners, record the podcast there. So actually make a bit of an event out of it.
When I started my career, I spent almost a year working at a hotel, and that hotel was located on a street called the Esplanade in Toronto.
Well, there you go.
But it wasn't the Esplanade Hotel. It was a Novotel owned by a French company. Very, very different probably.
It's just a bit different. This is a beautiful hotel with big bay windows, so Art Deco-ish hotel, big bay windows that look out over the water. And when I was a young adult, it had become very hardcore, grungy kind of place. The carpet was famous, for the stickiness of it. It was very not posh, which was a shame at the time because it was this beautiful location. Whereas now it's been done up and they've got this beautiful gin. This is where we were talking about gin. No, it wasn't with you. It was somebody else. We were talking about this beautiful gin inspired. There's a restaurant with Vietnamese and all sorts of Asian influences, which is a big thing in Australia. We call it Asian fusion. So a big thing in Australia because we are so close to Asia. A lot of restaurants have pools from different parts of Asia, so they've got one of those, but the bar area and the restaurant itself is inspired by like a 1920s gin palace. So really quite special now, plus a podcasting studio, which I'm very, very excited about. So things are rolling. So I'm excited partly because now I've got a contact in the community. And so over time, I'll speak to Vanessa more and see what I can do. And of course, that then means that I've got a contact. I can actually go, like the kids and I can go up there for a long weekend perhaps and go and meet some people and record some footage of people doing their amazing things, take some photos, that sort of stuff. So.
And you found a videographer as well?
I think I have. Yeah, I think I have. So this is one of these stories about serendipity and spontaneity, right? So I have rediscovered Albert Park, which is a lovely part of Melbourne. And I used to spend time in there when I was in high school in Albert Park because my uncle was a hairdresser in Albert Park and famously did my hair for my Year 12 formal, which it was massive. The hair was ridiculous. And there is a photo. I'll share it with you one day. Rediscovered Albert Park, sitting having a coffee outside a very lovely deli. In their window, they had a little sign that said office for rent upstairs. And I went, oh, do I need an office? I'm so attracted to shiny things. So I went and had a look at the office upstairs. Decided I didn't need the office, but the current occupants of the office are a film company. And they mostly do weddings. I ended up speaking to a woman there who put me onto the owner, who rang me that afternoon, very excited to meet with me and discuss all things videography. So, sessions for pre-records, options for behind the scene, fly on the wall stuff, but also they run a service where you put together the footage and of course they'll edit it for you. So lots and lots of options. So I'm meeting with him in a couple of weeks' time.
Nice.
Nice indeed. Serendipity.
Serendipity is a much better word than nice.
So I love that. I love when our instincts prompt us to do something. I don't need an office, like an externally rented office space. I really don't, not yet anyway. But for some reason I was drawn to, I love this particular deli. It has the best coffee and food and it's so nice.
You know what's a lot of fun? And this has happened to me a few times, right? So you love the area, you love the office, or you love the deli and this and that. You go upstairs, you don't do it. It's happened to me a few times where, like, in a year or 2 years or 3 years, you'll suddenly find yourself in that office, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I did look at this like 3 years ago, didn't I?" And you may even forget that you walked it originally, and it'll just strike you.
Yeah.
The house we live in right now.
Yeah.
I used to live a few blocks that direction, that way. And I would drive by this house every single day on my way to work and every single day on my way home because it was just on my way home. And I never watched, I never paid attention to the house. I never paid attention to the home. There was one time where there was a big ice storm here, and I did notice that the previous owner was cutting down a big pine tree, very slowly. Because I would drive to work and the tree's still there, half cut down, drive home, it's half done. And that's the only time I noted this home, was because this owner previously very slowly cut down a tree. And I thought, what a silly, lazy thing to do. And then suddenly one day we found ourselves living here. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I used to drive by this house every day. I forgot about that. So
I love when I'm talking to people about trusting their instincts and, and listening when things call to them. I don't get into the woo-woo. I'm not into that stuff at all. But I do think that sometimes coincidences or serendipity presents itself. And if we're listening, opportunities. So, this opportunity with a videographer wouldn't have happened if I hadn't followed the instinct to go and inquire about this office space. I think the reason I was in Albert Park was I needed a vet for my dog, and the dog needed to be put in a puppy hotel while I was in Hobart for the most recent trip.
Puppy hotel? You mean a kennel?
Puppy hotel. No, it's a puppy hotel.
It's a very expensive kennel.
Well, this has penthouse suites.
It's a very, very expensive kennel then, basically.
The dogs have their own cabin with a TV on the wall for company, a human-sized single bed for them to sleep on. I'm not joking.
This is total
artworks on the wall. Yeah.
How much does it cost a day? How much does this service cost a day in
I
Australian
don't know,
dollars?
because that's just details. Don't be bugging me about the details.
You don't pay attention to that?
No. What it costs
overall. Hold on, I'm learning something about you now. So when you select a service, you don't pay attention to how much it costs.
Of course I do, but I don't retain those details if they're not relevant to me. The detail I did retain was that the last time we flew him to Melbourne, we used a pet courier service because I couldn't make it. You can't just shove your dog in the plane. It doesn't work like that in Australia.
Right.
You actually have to book ahead of time. You've got to make, there's all sorts of reasons. There's got to be room in the cargo hold. Like, you've actually got to make sure that the flight you're traveling on has space for that. They've got to have a cage of a certain size. They're not allowed in the cabin of the plane, all sorts of things. It's very different. I know in the States, they're putting their foot down on what counts as a assistance animal. Like, you can't have your assistance peacock on the plane with you anymore, or your assistance snake. But yeah, in Australia, it's very, very rule driven, very much about dogs go in the cargo hold, and there has to be space. So it has to be coordinated. It's much more complicated than it actually needs to be. So in the end, I had to get a pet courier service so that they could pick him up and bring him to me. It was actually that difficult. The puppy hotel, leaving him at the puppy hotel for nearly a week, was less expensive than flying him one way with a puppy courier. So it was okay. We were going to take him, but the rules have changed since I last used the puppy courier, that for animal safety reasons, they now don't let certain breeds fly. And his breed is one of them.
Your husband's an engineer, right?
Yes. Where's this going?
So would you suggest that he's more more detail focused on these types of things, or is he?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So if I asked him what the day rate of the puppy hotel would be, he would be able to tell me?
No, because I wouldn't tell him. Because he's not
how many years have you been married?
Well, do you know what? This April,
quite successfully?
Not far away. Yeah. We have been together since the early days back in the Esplanade Hotel. We've been together for 30 years this April.
That's amazing. My wife and I have been together 20 years this May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
you
know what, I was when you were talking about trusting your gut, we've had quite a time. So
you've had a bit of time, yeah.
No.
Well,
we've had a time the last few days because we've been planning or trying to plan our 20th anniversary trip. So we've been married for 15 years, together for 20 years. I live in the future. Like I have no problem putting off today, like either procrastinating or even the whole like marshmallow test thing. You know, like I will totally sacrifice. You're not familiar with the marshmallow test?
No.
Oh no! Oh, they ran this.
Does it involve roasting them? Because I love roast marshmallows.
No, they ran this test, I think, in the 60s. As basically they sat a kid down, and they said, here's a marshmallow. You can eat it now if you want, but if you wait 5 minutes, you can have 2. Sit there and don't do anything. It's an empty room. All it is just a marshmallow. They have to sit there. But if they wait, they get 2. And they ran the test with a whole control group. And then they checked up on the kids at age 10, at age 15, at age 20. Anyway, the kids who were willing to put off eating the marshmallow saw, it was just a positive indicator of future success, hard work, determination, and other things, because they were willing to put off, delay the gratification in order to get what they wanted more of in the long run. Anyway, so I'm totally of this, I'm fine taking 4 years not traveling anywhere to know that this most amazing thing will be the most amazing thing. So I've been building up this trip in my head, and my wife is more of the well, why can't we do it now and do it later? 2 vacations is better than one really big vacation. So I'm just like this week away with no kids, my wife and I, it's our 20th anniversary, 15 years married. This better be like the greatest thing we ever do. And so I put so much pressure on it. It's actually very, very challenging to try and find something that will live up to my expectations.
Be very careful. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. We were in New York last year for our 25th wedding anniversary. So together 30 years this year, married 25 years last year. And we spent we were, or were we? No, I think, anyway, we were in New York around the time of our 25th wedding anniversary. And so we ended up having a weekend. We had Mother's Day. It must have been American Mother's Day. Is it different to Australian? I think it is.
It is?
American I think
Mother's
it's a
Day
different
is
date.
like around the 11th, 12th of May. So it was the second Sunday of the month.
Oh, no, maybe it's the same. Maybe it's the same. And we stayed at the Peninsula in Manhattan. And I got treated to lovely things from Tiffany's. And nothing over the top, just I have this lovely pendant, which is just a gold sphere. And that was my gift. But yeah, it was my 50th birthday in January. And, I really wasn't interested in a really big thing. So again, we went away, had a weekend away, and it was special. It was lovely. It was different. It was somewhere here as opposed to, it was somewhere I'd never been before. I think we've found that when we build things up, no one's really got the energy anymore to build things up too big. But my husband does live in fear of disappointing my expectations. So I try and keep my expectations fairly low so he's not too stressed. Otherwise, it doesn't tend to fly well.
So we decide that we can either go
I should say he always exceeds my expectations, put it that way.
Well, that's good.
Which is great. Yeah, he's beautiful.
So we've been talking about, we could go, we enjoy Vegas, so we can go to Las Vegas and see some shows and eat and go to the spa and hang out, at the pool, all that. We go to New York, we can go to South Beach, we can go to California. We can go, it's in May, so we can go to South Carolina and, do plantation tours. We could go to the Caribbean, we like Jamaica and other places. And so there's just too many options. And
come to Australia.
For 1 week. We're not coming to Australia for a week. No, thank you. And we still have 4 kids. So maybe when we're a little older. But so finally my wife the other day goes like, we are going to the travel agent today and we are deciding today. And I said, well, but do you want a trip or do you want vacation? Do you want to go to Europe? Do you do you want to just relax? Do you want to go see things? Help me understand this. And so we decide that we want to go to someplace warm. We decide that, that sounds really good, but we've done a bunch of beach vacations and I like going to beach vacations because that's cool. But this is an important thing and we got to do something a little more extraordinary. And, we want to challenge ourselves out of our comfort zone. So we pick an island that we've never even heard of. I mean, so we're thinking about St. Lucia, which is near Barbados.
Oh, yeah.
I know it exists, but I've never crossed my mind as a place where we should visit.
Yeah.
Now, here is the thing that really made me think about your serendipity and being open and all of this stuff. So I'm fairly risk adverse. If I'm going to spend a lot of money on a trip, and I'm prepared to spend a lot of money on a trip, like an uncomfortable amount of money on this trip, it's that important to me that I want to look back and go, that was amazing. And so we have a few options, right? St. Lucia is an island that's a volcanic island. And so on the north end of the island, it gets very flat. And that's where the beaches and the hotels are. And on the south side of the island, where you can only get there through dirt roads or helicopter, there's this little tiny bay with one tiny beach and mostly mountainside hotels.
Yeah, right. So that's where you're going, of course.
I'm not sure. So I go, Jack, it's already something that we're going to St. Lucia. That's already cool. We've never been there. Why don't we go to the Sandals, right? The Sandals Resort, at least it's a big resort. It's a brand name. At least we know what we're getting, even though it's kind of cool. And she's like, yeah, I do want the beach and I don't want to go to a place and have it be bad. But I really want to stay in the mountains on the side of a mountain. But the only things on the side of a mountain are 6-room independent hotels. Or there's one resort that we priced out that would cost $18,000 American, not including food and not including air travel. And I was like, I don't think we're in a position to spend $23,000 on 1 week just to stay in this crazy boutique hotel on the side of a mountain because it has a beach. I don't think so. So we're still stuck with do we go into this island and do the Sandals thing, which feels very safe? Or do we go and we found this little tiny hotel that is independently run. It only has 6 bedrooms, but it doesn't it has open walls right? So it's like one of these hotels
Yeah.
where you're on the side of a mountain and you have one wall for your bed and then the rest of it is open walls, which is super
Beautiful.
risky for me. And I said to my wife, I was like, listen, this may be the greatest experience we've ever had, or it could be a total train wreck and disaster, and we won't know until we get there. So do you want the safe thing where we know it's going to be pretty good, or are you willing to try spending this money to try and take this dirt road or a helicopter to this little hotel that literally could be the greatest thing we've ever done? Or, as one of the reviews said on TripAdvisor, a guy spent an entire night killing frogs that kept coming into the room and into the bed. So my wife wouldn't make this decision.
No.
She said, I don't know. You make a decision. So I went, okay. I said, we're staying on the side of a mountain. But be prepared that it might be the worst thing that we ever do. The worst thing.
And it could be the best thing you ever do. I have this real belief that when you throw something out there that's way off your comfort zone, you'll never regret it. Because even if it's bad, it's still a great experience that you get to talk about forever, right?
Well, but then then I make this decision. We're staying on the side of a mountain. Could be the greatest thing or the worst thing ever. Yeah. We don't know, but we are open. We're open to the experience. And then she texts me this afternoon and goes, hey, have you heard of this dengue fever that's now making the news around here because Canadians are dying because of it? They're getting it on vacation, and then they're actually passing away.
Dengue fever, yeah.
And I was like, we're going to Vegas. I'm not.
But no, you know what?
I haven't ruled out St. Lucia yet, but now I have a new thing to be afraid of. Thanks.
I guess, the fact that we live on albeit very large, well, Tasmania's a very small island.
You live on an island where everything's trying to kill you all the time anyway, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
We live in Canada. No earthquakes here, no tornadoes here, no natural disasters, no bugs that are trying to kill you.
I know.
Like, we got
But the reality is here, if you want to go on an international holiday, you have to leave the island. It's like Survivor. You have to kind of get off the island and then go to a whole nother continent. And, you kind of have to think about inoculations and all that sort of stuff. And we're very close to Asia. So most of our holiday destinations are in Asia. So you've got all the tropical fevers and diseases and things in Asia. So I would love to take my kids to Vietnam. We went to Vietnam.
Oh, I'd love to go to Vietnam.
Oh, such a beautiful. I love northern Vietnam. There's something about the cultural crossover between the old French colonial days in the architecture, but also if you happen to come across some elderly Vietnamese people, they actually. So I had an example of this. Walked into an antique shop, wanted to ask how much something cost, and he didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Vietnamese. And he was so old, I, for some reason, randomly wondered if he spoke French. So I asked him in French and he answered me in French. And we had I don't speak fluent French, don't get me wrong, but we had this lovely little stilted communication between the two of us because he knew enough French and I knew enough French for us to just be able to talk. And it was like both of us went, wow, we can communicate. So there's something about northern Vietnam. It's beautiful, beautiful. What are these strange climate things where it's cold but humid at the same time in winter in Hanoi? Like you're not hot, but it's sticky, weird.
Okay.
Climate, yeah.
Anyway, so those are the vacations.
So you'll have to. So you're not going somewhere tropical anymore.
No,
Well, I do have a reputation.
The thing is, I'm the type of person. My daughter has this as well. If there is any mosquito anywhere, they will pass 7 people just to come and bite me.
Yeah, my youngest is.
I get like I still have scars from mosquito bites. I get really attacked. Yeah. And so we've been to.
So you want to go to Japan?
I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to go to Korea.
We'll go to Japan then.
Vietnam. No. I asked my wife. Said no. She has no interest. I'd love to go to China.
So Japan doesn't have all the tropical diseases, and it's an amazingly safe community to be in. Super city, and yet you don't feel crowded. I don't know how they manage that, but you don't feel overcrowded. Unlike in New York, There's something about the Japanese cultural awareness of personal space that you just don't feel crowded. It's an amazing place to travel to, and it will be warm at that time of year.
I think we might be spending a week on the side of a mountain in St. Lucia with either the most amazing
Surely you can get some
view and time with me covered in bug spray, or we're not going to be sleeping because of all of the chirping little bugs and everything, frogs and all of that weird stuff. Then the food will be
I've got a very dear
and we will be sick, and it'll be raining, and that might happen as well. We don't know.
You will survive as long as there's not a volcano eruption. You survive.
Well, thanks. I hadn't considered that, but you've just given me something new to concern myself with.
Yeah. Well, I think you're probably likely to be pretty safe. There's, because I know these things. I don't know these things.
Yeah. So would you pick the safer, or would you pick the side of the mountain? Would you be at the Sandals, or would you be at the tiny independent place? Or would you be at the $24,000 place?
It would depend, because we don't really travel without the kids. We just haven't to date.
It's my favorite thing to do as a father.
As a father, it's your favorite thing to do. We just haven't. We just haven't. And usually my primary focus is how comfortable are we going to be as a family. We don't go for child-friendly places in terms of are they kid-focused. We go for places where we're going to have enough space where we'll be comfortable. So the kids will eat with us in the restaurant and sit in the bar and hang out. No, they don't. But what I mean is that we would go with the place that's going to give us the best value for family fun. So is there a pool? Is there, are there places to walk? Is it an interesting place? And then price would be our second consideration. So if the best place for us as a family was the more expensive option, then we might choose the more expensive option. But that wouldn't necessarily be our first thought. I think because also we don't, I don't know. My thinking about if you're going to spend money, you might as well enjoy it. That's how I feel. That's that approach that I have. It's a little bit like when I fly. So when I fly, I fly with Virgin Australia, and this is domestic internal airfares. But if I'm traveling overseas and I have the option to fly with Virgin, I'll fly with them as well. There's a website that you can choose. You can mix and match your flights so you get the absolute cheapest rate. But when you get the absolute cheapest rate, you are going to be complaining about comfort. You are going to be complaining about whether or not you've got something to eat or drink. You are going to be complaining about lots of things. So my approach to air travel, and I do a lot of domestic air travel, is I will fly with one airline that I know 9 times out of 10 gets it right. And when I book directly with them, I've got the option to, they have like this little thing where you can bid for an upgrade. So, and usually I'm successful. So for not much more money than my seat, I end up in business class. Nice. And I know that that's the likely outcome. Yeah. I don't buy business class seats because they're super expensive, right? So I've got this little hack. So that,
I guess so. I don't know. I hang out with Evan Carmichael, and he only flies business class, so he's starting to drag me from business class is a lot nicer than coach.
Business class, yeah, and most of my flying is between Hobart and Melbourne, and it's only an hour and 15, hour and 20. And I get to have a meal, I get to relax, I get to do some work because there's enough space, and so on. So whereas in coach, I don't feel that I can. You certainly don't get a meal, and you're lucky if you get a drink, and there's not enough space for me to really comfortably open up. I know people say that they work comfortably in coach, but for me, I feel like I'm doing this and I get a backache and complain a lot. So I don't want to complain. So for me, it's about, thinking about how you spend your money, where you spend your money. I would much rather, so here in Melbourne, I do things like now I make sure that I go to, I did something similar in Hobart. So I'll go to the market, and most of the things that I buy for our groceries will be organic and locally produced. It's a thing that I'm pretty big on. If I've got the option of buying from local producers, so smaller farmers, rather than the big conglomerates, I will take that option. And it might cost me more money to do that per item, but I know damn well if you let me loose in a supermarket to wander the aisles, I will buy every single crap thing I don't need and end up spending more money.
See, I'm on such a strict diet that I can literally walk into a grocery store. And you know how they talk about shopping the perimeter? I don't know if your grocery stores are like that in Australia, but you know, when you walk in typically here, you face produce. And then just past produce is usually the bakery, and then you have meats, and then you have dairies, and it's just all around the exterior is all of the stuff that they have to stock.
I think it's the same. Pretty much the middle
is all the crap that's been packaged or produced or what have you. And so I walk in though, I'm on such a strict diet that there's only like, I don't know, 12 things I can eat or something. So it's not very hard to shop.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think I don't know if you have something similar in Canada or if they have something similar in the States as well, but we've had quite the controversy here in Australia about for our dairy farmers and milk producers being locked into contracts to provide milk
with the milk board,
major supermarket. I don't know.
So we have a milk board. So our dairy, like my wife's grandfather was a milk producer, and so as a milk producer, you have to sell your milk to the milk board. They come and pick it up. You cannot give it away. You cannot throw it out. You cannot overproduce, and you cannot underproduce. You have a milk.
Yeah, I don't think they have anything like that.
You have a milk quota that you have to hit, and they do that to control the market to ensure that pricing is set to the value that they determine it to be. So our milk board sets all of our pricing. I don't know what their margins are, but they do it to ensure that farmers can farm.
So that's what we've had here is the opposite of that. So the supermarkets, the major supermarket chains moved into the milk pricing debate by selling milk at really low rates and locking producers into contracts that were, I'm guessing they must have looked attractive at the outset, guaranteed sales, I don't know. But what's happened is a lot of farmers are actually losing money because of
our
these
milk
contracts.
Is so expensive here. Our milk, our cheese, our chicken, like we have our pork, our beef, and our chicken is also priced based off of boards. Yeah. So like that's here, 4 liters of milk is I think $4.25. So
for how many liters?
4 liters. A gallon.
So we're probably paying that for 2 liters. So
you pay $4 for 2 liters of milk? Do you guys just not have a lot of cows? It seems very expensive. You go to the States, you can get milk for like $2 a gallon, or like it's like our chicken. Like here for boneless, skinless chicken breast, it's like $16 a kilo. It's incredibly expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, see, well, okay.
Let's get into the pricing because I know you pay attention. I've learned that.
What I do. So this is the thing. I don't pay attention to the price. I pay attention to the experience and to what's going on behind the scenes. That's the stuff that I will notice. So in Tasmania in particular, when I was still living there, and of course when I'm home there again, because I'm there every month. There are a couple of local Tasmanian milk producers that I will only buy my milk from those local Tasmanian milk producers instead of buying from the major producers. And certainly I will not buy supermarket branded milk because of these contracts. So it's kind of like there's been a bit of a push here in Australia about boycotting the supermarket branded milks. I mean, nobody's winning that particular war, but I would rather support a local producer. And so now it was interesting to me when I moved here, figuring out, I don't know who to buy milk from. I don't know whose milk. I don't know which label on a milk bottle represents a local producer. And luckily I found a little shop around the corner that sells mostly organic produce. And then the markets and so on. And I've started to learn which producers I'm buying my milk from. That's just one example. Milk's one example. So for me, I would rather spend a little bit more per item on the quality of the product and the story behind the product than save the money but risk spending more in my total shopping bill by going into a supermarket. I don't like supermarkets.
That sounds like you're justifying something.
No, I probably am, but it is a real thing. Like for me, I will spend less money per week.
We have a family of 6. We spend a tremendous amount of money on food.
You will spend it. Yeah, well, there's that too. Yeah,
I've just grown comfortable with the fact that, with my teenager and my almost teenage boy who just, that we eat. And now that I eat a special diet, my wife eats a special diet and stuff. Just, I've had to give up the fight of trying to keep grocery bills reasonable.
Yeah. Look, I haven't quite hit that zone yet. We're not quite teenagers yet, but I think we're burgeoning. We're getting onto that soon. Mm-hmm. So, I would much rather, and I have this argument with my kids a lot because they are fans of junk food. And I would much rather take them out to dinner than have them buy junk food. I'd rather say, let's go to we're surrounded by restaurants. We're surrounded by, Melbourne's known for its food. I mean, most big cities are, of course. I would much rather go and have a nice meal at a restaurant nearby, knowing that my youngest, Henry, will eat something healthy from there, as opposed to getting some crap from. And I'm not a health freak or any of those things. I have no stake or no claim to say that I live some kind of healthy lifestyle.
I don't get the sense that you're a health freak. I get the sense that you are super, super passionate about supporting local / I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's a status thing or if it's like a personality thing, but yeah. Because there's no difference between this and you feeling the need to reach out and help people in the affected communities, or when you were doing counseling or whatever. You want to know the experience and the story behind the people, because you want to deal with people. You don't want to deal with large multinational corporations.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, if I've got the opportunity to support another local business by using their service for my business, I would much rather do that than have some other big conglomerate.
See, that always makes me uncomfortable. I'm like someone who's like, oh, it's a chain. It might be garbage, but at the very least, I know what I'm going to get. If it's an independent, who knows what you're going to get? You might get something amazing. You might get something terrible. You don't know. And yet, just like the hotel decision, when we do go to independent places, more often than not, they're actually a lot better. People just care a little bit more.
Yeah, they do. So I run a midwinter retreat, business working retreat every winter for the last couple of years. I've done this, and I run it out of a boutique hotel in Hobart, and the building is nearly 200 years old. It's a very small, I think they've only got 10 rooms. It's exquisite. Their food is amazing. They've got this beautiful dining. They've got a big sort of dining area.
People in Tasmania 200 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are we going with this? What was the question? Say that again.
I said, were people in Tasmania 200 years ago to build this hotel?
First of all, people have been in Tasmania for like 60,000 years. But
those were Aboriginal people, yes, who have a claim to the land and weren't building boutique hotels.
No, they weren't building boutique hotels. But no, Hobart was settled 1803.
Yeah. So this is one of like the first buildings to go in then.
It's probably not true. This one is probably somewhere between 150 and 200 years old, the hotel. But it has been around for a long time. It was a home, like a very swanky home.
We are one of the youngest countries ever. And so
Canada.
History. Yeah. So like history for us is like, hey, we have this fancy hotel called the Fairmont Royal York. That was built in 1925. Like that's like, wow, it's almost 100 years old, right? Our Union train station was put in like the 1890s. Like to us, that's like really old stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my family, I'm 8th generation Tasmanian.
Okay. That's a lot of generations.
Some people will have something to say about my gene pool, being 8th generation Tasmanian.
I don't know how to make fun of Tasmanians.
Oh, yeah. Well, all you need to say, yeah, no. So the standard joke about Tasmanians is that we're born with 2 heads. And so the classic response that I learnt over the years, I don't even know where I stole this from, I definitely stole it from someone, was at least I got to choose my face. What's your excuse?
I don't even get that joke. So Tasmanians are born with 2 heads. I get to choose
so I got rid of the other one. I kept this one. I chose this one.
Okay, I get it now.
I chose my face. What's your excuse? So Tasmania was built it was built on convict background, and my family is a mix on my mother's side of convict ancestry and on my father's side of free farming settlers.
Who did they piss off, or what did they do wrong?
My convict ancestors were arsonists, one from which is complicated given the recent bushfires. Yeah. So one was
gosh. It's not complicated at all. What does that mean? It's complicated.
Well, okay. The complication is that I had a program that I was promoting called Fire Starters, which was named after my convict ancestors. So it was named after,
that's something you might want.
The things that they overcame to, have this amazing future, right?
Yes.
I can't, I've renamed that program now.
Yeah.
But so one was a male farm worker who set fire to the crops and was sent out here from England. And the other was a female domestic worker who set fire to the stable. Was it the stable or the house? Stable or house? I suspect that she was probably pretty angry about something, and we can probably guess what might have caused such ferocious anger to set fire to either the house or the stables.
So she may have been, in a relationship with a man who jilted her?
Look, I think, I wonder if she was a victim of sexual assault.
That's a much worse way of saying what I said.
Yeah. She had a lot of problems ongoing, alcoholism and all sorts of stuff going on for her. I wonder with the male ancestor, there was actually a movement in the UK around the similar time. A lot of convicts came out for arson offences, and I actually noticed when I was researching this, I noticed on the same ship as him, there were a lot of people with fire setting or arson offences, and I asked the archivist, what's the story? What was going on? And at the time in the UK, there was a reaction against the Industrial Revolution known as the Swing Riots, so SWING, Swing Riots, and the guy who was leading those was referred to as Captain Swing. And people were setting fire to stuff all over the place as a retaliation against losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods to machines. So I don't know whether he was a member of the Swing Riots or not, whether it was a deliberate action or a deliberate political action on his part, but or whether he was just drunk and dropped a candle. I don't know. But anything's possible.
Or whether they just shipped off people they didn't like and then just wrote down arsonist as the crime.
Look, they were, I don't know. There was certainly some interesting stories, and there was some falsification of records, especially in Tasmania. I have an ancestor on my father's side who was documented as being gypsy, her ancestry being gypsy, which is interesting in Tasmania. There were some Romani gypsies in Australia, but a very small community of them, and I don't know how many of them made it to Tasmania. The more likely story, given that we had free farming settlers on that side of the family in northern Tasmania, where there was a very strong Aboriginal community, the likelihood is stronger that there was some Aboriginal component to her history, her story. But I can't prove that, and I'll never know. So people would falsify documents about their heritage in order to be allowed to marry. So Aboriginal people had to get permission to marry, and permission was frequently denied. So people would often document that they're either Gypsy or Indian to be allowed to marry freely. It was very, very interesting time. So, and how did we get here?
Yeah. That's what it should be called. How did we get here?
So yeah, boutique hotel. So I would rather spend a bit more on a boutique hotel for that kind of experience where I know that people are going to have a great experience, but also, so this year I've already just about filled the whole hotel. So I know that we will have the whole hotel to ourselves for break. There's a couple of beautiful breakout spaces in this particular hotel. So I know that it's costing me more than it might cost to run that event somewhere else, but the experience of it will be memorable. And that's partly what I'm selling, is the experience as well. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's, I don't know where that comes from in terms of, is it a personality thing? I don't know where it comes from. Can't tell you.
I think you're very, very drawn to experience, because even listening to you talk about, you'd much rather go out to a nice restaurant with your boys than allow them to have junk food. Like, that's what you might want. That's what you might want, but they might just be like, "Thanks, Mom. I don't want to go out for this nice meal with you."
Well, interestingly, Henry's a very fussy eater. He's my youngest, whereas Roy's very adventurous eater. He's my oldest. So when Roy would be in the seat in the shopping trolley at the greengrocer eating a mushroom like an apple when he was 2. Like, who does that? And he still does. Like, he would eat oysters and olives and all sorts of things. So I've got polar opposites, 2 children raised in the same home with foodie parents, and one of them is extremely fussy eater. So we've now found restaurants where his favourite ones. So there's a beautiful little French restaurant around the corner that we really, really love. And he loves to go there because they do the most beautiful steak, and they do it just the way he likes it. And that's a bit special. So we don't, but because we eat out regularly, it's not such a big deal for us. So we won't necessarily, we don't do the 3 courses. It doesn't cost ridiculous quantities of money to do that. We just have one course, and it might only be an entree if you're not particularly hungry. Well, do you guys call it entree or appetizer?
We have an appetizer, and then we have the entree, and then we may have dessert.
No.
The entree is the main.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it isn't.
Tis.
So we might have an appetizer, and it's the experience. Again, it's the experience of.
Or we don't even call them appetizers anymore. They're just called starters.
Oh.
They're called starters.
Oh, that hurts my ears.
Listen, I don't make up the rules.
I
just try to live in this world.
So the experience. Did we win? It does. Well, I think we did win because I was just about to bring it back to Malakuta.
Oh, okay, good. Bring it home.
I don't even know how I managed to do that. So the whole point for me is, yes, we've got spend with them, we've got stay with them. These are all hashtags, right? Spend with them, stay with them, empty esky, and now my Malakuta esky. They're all about people having the experience and getting the quality of the experience. And while they're doing that, they're supporting bushfire affected communities. There's also a push, I don't know that there's an associated hashtag, but there is also a push for business to run events and meetings and whatever, in conferences or that sort of thing, in some of these communities. So I'm very much thinking already about, well, midwinter retreat, do I continue to run that in Tasmania? I'm happy to keep doing that. Or do I run it in Malakuta? I don't know what's there. So, we'll have to go and explore that option as well.
There's an aerodome.
I know, because you did the research for me, because you were trying to make me go there like that day.
I wanted you to fly in, yes.
My grandfather was an aircraft mechanic during the Second World War, and he had wanted to be a pilot, and that didn't happen. And so he never left Australia during the war. He was here servicing aircraft. And
that's lucky for him, because otherwise he would have been in the South Pacific or something, right?
Yeah, right. And I might not be here. But he, when I was living with my grandparents for a couple of years when I was a kid. And when I was living with them around that time anyway, he eventually went and got some flying lessons. And he took me up in a plane, a small aircraft. And fabulous memory. But for some reason or other, I don't really like the idea of small planes. So I don't think I'm going to be flying into Malakuta anytime soon. But driving 6 hours, not a problem.
Easy peasy.
Easy. We put on the audiobooks, we put on the music, whatever we do, we have an experience along the way. We stop everywhere and drink coffee everywhere and eat all the things.
You've used the word experience like 85 times in this podcast. It is the most important thing to you. You turn your road trip into an experience along the way.
But you can add that concept to any business, right? You can add that. What is the experience when my clients, so when I first started my private practice, I wanted it to look a certain way. So I had it decorated in a kind of an art deco / nouveau kind of style. Because most of my clients at that time in particular, the type of client population I was focusing on, they were often treated poorly in terms of respect. They didn't go many places where they got a lot of respect. I was dealing with people with personality disorders and criminal behaviours and that sort of thing. I wanted people to walk in the door of my practice and feel like this was the most special place they got to come to. It might be the only special place they get to go to, and they get treated with respect. And that's before they've even entered the consulting room to see me. So the minute they walk in, they're treated with respect, and it's a nice place to come. So it does also inform my business choices. I guess some people would call that customer service, but
maybe that's why you're successful.
Maybe
you focus on experience.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. We won.
we did it. We did what we set out to do.
And the funny thing is, I refused to panic about this once I realized that I haven't recorded this except to Facebook. So
you didn't hit record?
I did, but I didn't do the proper bit. So it didn't record to Zoom, but it recorded to Facebook.
Okay.
Look at the face. It's okay. It's just details. We will download it from Facebook. We will upload it to YouTube. We will do all the things, and it will still exist.
C'est parfait.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you need to go to bed now because it's late in your world.
It is late.
I need to
hear
go
my
and
kids running
think
around
about...
because they should be in bed by now as well.
Yeah, see, and you can blame me.
There you go.
It's Tessa's
fault. Blame Tess.
I'll wear it. I will talk to you soon. I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Good night.
In a fortnight even.
A fortnight, exactly. Bye-bye.
Bye.